Why was everyone staring when she stepped off the Osprey? Maybe it was the uniform, too clean. Maybe it was her age, too old. Or maybe it was because she carried herself like someone who didn't care if she fit in. Master Sergeant Anna Sharma had seen the look before. It always came right before someone decided she didn't belong. The air at Forward Operating Base Aries was alive with heat. Not just warmth, but a living, grinding heat that clawed into the lungs and filled every crevice of metal and skin. Dust swirled around the landing pad like smoke, coating everything with a dull, ochre grit. The Osprey's rotors faded into silence, leaving behind the sound of generators, bootsteps, and far-off voices that carried a kind of weary rhythm only war zones knew. Anna adjusted her rifle case, its matte surface scratched but clean, unmarked by stickers or slogans. Her eyes, gray and quiet as weathered stone, moved across the base. Hesco barriers, tents. A few soldiers moving without hurry but never relaxed. The heat shimmered, bending the distance. This place, like every other she'd served in, felt both temporary and eternal. She was 42. Her face didn't hide it, didn't try to. There was something about her stillness that unsettled people younger than her. She didn't slouch. She didn't swagger. She just moved with that careful, unhurried purpose that only veterans and predators had in common. Near the stacked shipping containers, 3 men lounged in the narrow band of shade. They looked like the kind of men who enjoyed being the best at what they did and made sure everyone knew it. Their rifles were custom, their gear expensive, their confidence absolute. The one in front straightened up slightly, a tall man with a chiseled jaw and the kind of smirk that came from too many easy victories. His name, stenciled on his helmet, was Sergeant K. Jensen, the team lead, and apparently the kind of soldier who thought sunlight existed just to spotlight him. "Must be lost," one of the others muttered, not quite under his breath. "Supply depot, that way, ma'am." Anna didn't look at him. Her gaze passed over them once, brief, dispassionate, clinical. She noted their aftermarket optics, the customized bipods, the way their rifles were arranged like trophies more than tools. She said evenly, looking for Colonel Rustova's command post. The smirk deepened. "You're the replacement for Gunny Martinez?" Jensen asked. His tone made it sound like an insult. "Didn't think they'd send us a desk jockey." Anna didn't answer, didn't even blink. Silence was her oldest ally. Another one Bell, she would later remember, snickered. "Careful with that rifle case, Master Sergeant. Sun's hot, might warp the plastic." Anna turned her head slightly toward him. Not fast, not slow, just enough for her eyes to find his. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through the dry wind. It wasn't a glare, glares were emotional. This was heavier, still, measured, like the look of someone calculating the exact weight of what she could endure and what she would not. Bell's smirk faltered. His mouth twitched once, then closed. He looked away first. "Colonel Rustova's post," Anna said again, tone flat as if nothing had happened. Jensen's jaw shifted. He pointed behind him with a lazy thumb. "Big tent, antennas out front. Try not to get heatstroke on the way." Anna nodded once, turned and walked away. Ramrod straight, steps even, precise. Behind her, one of the younger men snorted. "They sent us a damn secretary to fill Gunny's boots," he muttered. Jensen didn't respond right away. He watched her figure move across the base, the heat waves swallowing her shape until she vanished inside the command tent. "She won't last a week," he said finally, but there was a flicker of something else behind his voice. Uncertainty, maybe even curiosity. Inside, the temperature dropped a few degrees, but the air grew thicker. It smelled like coffee left too long in the pot and ozone from too many electronics. Maps covered the walls, their colored lines carving out danger and strategy in equal measure. Colonel Eva Rustova turned from a digital overlay when Anna entered. Her presence filled the tent without effort. She had the look of someone who'd spent half her life holding unstable situations together through sheer force of will. Her voice was cold, clipped, and precise. Master Sergeant Sharma, she said. It wasn't a greeting, it was a test. Yes, ma'am. Rusttova studied her in silence. Your file precedes you. Commendations from years ago, distinguished service in multiple theaters, then 5 years at CENTCOM, analyzing signals intelligence. Her gaze sharpened. This is not Tampa. No, ma'am, Anna said. The colonel stepped closer, tapping a finger against a section of the map marked Al-Hajr corridor. Out there is a viper's nest. We lost one of our best snipers because his spotter missed a heat signature from a concealed tunnel. I don't need paper analysts, Master Sergeant. I need shooters. I need someone who can stay prone 72 hours in heat that cooks your blood and make a 2,000-meter shot in a crosswind that eats steel. She let the words hang between them like a gauntlet thrown. Your record says you're qualified, but it's old paper, ideal in current performance. Sergeant Jensen's team holds the Overwatch position for Operation Serpent's Eye next week. I expected a replacement from the 75th. Instead, I got you. There was no venom in her tone, just hard truth. Anna's voice didn't waver. I was sent where the orders directed me, Colonel. Orders can be rescinded. A pause, the faint hum of electronics filled the air. Tomorrow, 800, quarterly qualification, Rusttova said. 52 targets, mixed range, the record's 51. Jensen holds it. One malfunction cleared in 4 seconds. You'll shoot the same course using a standard rifle from the armory. No personal modifications, no favorites. If your score isn't perfect, you're on the next Osprey back to Tampa. Understood. Perfectly, Anna replied. Good, see the armorer for your rifle and ammo. Range prep at 7:30. Rusttova turned back to the map. The conversation was over. When Anna stepped outside, the sunlight hit her like a blow. She blinked once and kept walking. The sniper team was still there. Jensen leaned against a crate, cleaning his rifle with the casual arrogance of someone who thought he already knew how tomorrow would end. So, he said without looking up, dancing for your supper, huh? Anna stopped. Seems that way. The range here's tricky, he said. Mirage gets bad after 9. The wind, too, she likes to change her mind. I'll keep that in mind. He smiled. One more thing, make sure you pick a good magazine. Some of the old ones jam under heat. Bent feed lips, weak springs could cost you seconds. She finally turned, eyes steady. Thank you for the advice, Sergeant. Just trying to be helpful, he said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. That night the base quieted under a hard, amber moon. The MWR tent buzzed with laughter, but Anna wasn't there. She sat alone in the armory's maintenance bay, fluorescent light humming overhead. Before her lay the M110A1 standard issue. She broke it down without ceremony. Each part disassembled, inspected, cleaned, oiled. Her hands moved like they remembered every motion without needing thought. Her silence wasn't emptiness, it was precision. Every click of a pin, every soft scrape of cloth on steel was an act of control. She inspected the 10 magazines she'd been issued. Springs, followers, feed lips, nothing escaped her eye. One looked slightly worn, she set it aside. 9 perfect, 1 maybe. She loaded them methodically. Thump, click, thump, click. The sound was rhythmic, almost meditative. Across the base, in a shadow behind the vehicle depot, Jensen whispered to an armory clerk who owed him a favor. A folded $50 bill exchanged hands. Minutes later, under the flickering floodlights, Jensen used a multi-tool to bend one feed lip inward, barely a millimeter, and filed a burr onto the follower. Subtle, invisible, but fatal. A jam waiting to happen. When he left, he was smiling. Back in the armory, Anna didn't notice the swap. She signed the hand receipt, placed the magazines in her pack, and secured her rifle. Then she sat back in the dim light, staring at the weapon laid across her knees. There was no fear in her eyes, just distance, thought, the kind of quiet that comes from having seen too much and saying nothing about it. The night wind carried distant laughter from the other soldiers. Somewhere, Jensen was already bragging. Somewhere, others were already betting she wouldn't last. Anna sat perfectly still. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Let them. Why was she so calm that morning? No one understood it. Maybe it was the way she stood at the range, hands clasped behind her back, gaze fixed on the horizon as if the desert itself were speaking to her. Or maybe it was because she looked like someone who had already lived through worse than failure. The sun rose over forward operating base Ares with a cruelty that felt personal. It burned the last trace of coolness out of the air by 7:30. The heat shimmered above the packed dirt like invisible fire. Dust clung to sweat, to fabric, to breath. It made everything heavier, even time. The range stretched across the desert like an open scar. Steel targets painted in dull tan scattered from 300 meters out to nearly a mile and a half. Some static, some swinging, some that vanished in seconds, each one waiting for a bullet, a mistake, or a miracle. Colonel Rusttova stood off to the side, arms crossed, stopwatch in hand. She didn't say anything to the soldiers gathered around, but the tension in her jaw told the story. This was no friendly qualification shoot. This was a public trial. The sniper platoon lined the observation berm, shades pulled low, muttering under their breath. A few had come out just for the spectacle, to see the so-called paper pusher from CENTCOM prove them right. Sergeant Jensen was already on the firing line. He wore confidence like armor. His custom-built rifle gleamed under the sun, upgraded trigger, hand-cut barrel, polished bolt. Every piece a testament to pride and ego. He shot first. Shooter ready, Rustova's voice carried across the wind. Ready, Jensen said. Engage. The first shot cracked through the still air. The sound rolled across the desert like thunder. Steel rang a clean hit. Another shot, another ring. The rhythm built quickly, crack, ring, crack, ring. He moved like a performer, fluid, loud, confident. Every reload was a flourish. Every hit followed by a subtle nod toward the watching crowd. He didn't just want to win, he wanted her to see how far behind she was before she even began. By the 40th target, the crowd was murmuring in admiration. By the 48th, he missed one, a moving target at 1,100 meters. A breath of silence passed over the line, then he hit it on the second try. When the stopwatch stopped, the time read 4 minutes 12 seconds, 51 hits, 1 miss, 1 cleared malfunction. The crowd applauded. Jensen grinned. Beat that, he whispered under his breath as he walked past her. Anna didn't answer. She just stepped onto the firing line as though she were walking into an empty room. She knelt, laid out her mat, and set her rifle down with quiet precision. No theatrics, no noise, just deliberate, exact movement. She arranged her magazines in a neat row beside her, left to right, top to bottom, like a ritual only she understood. When she looked through the scope, the world shrank to a circle of clarity. There was no heat, no audience, no colonel watching. There was only breath, wind, and distance. Shooter, are you ready? Anna exhaled slowly. Ready. Stand by. The world went silent. Engage. The first magazine, the sabotaged one, clicked into place. She chambered around, felt the familiar tension of the bolt closing. The first target shimmered in the mirage at 400 meters. She drew a breath, let half of it out, and pressed the trigger. The rifle spoke. Steel answered. Ping. A ripple of approval moved through the crowd. Second shot, 550 meters, ping. Third shot, 600 meters, ping. Each movement was methodical, controlled. Her breathing never changed. Her posture never broke. It was as if every motion had been carved into her long before this day, in places and moments the others could never imagine. By the sixth shot, Jensen's smirk had faded. Something about her rhythm felt wrong, or maybe too right. There was no waste, no flair, just discipline so pure it bordered on eerie. Then it happened. Shot 7, 800 meters direct hit. She worked the bolt and it stopped halfway. A small metallic click echoed, soft but sharp enough to cut through the dry air. Her rifle jammed. The entire range went quiet. A double feed, a shooter's nightmare. Jensen's grin returned instantly. This was it. The jam he'd planned, waiting to humiliate her in front of everyone. The clock was already running and she hadn't even moved. Rustova's eyes narrowed. No one spoke. For a single frozen second, Anna didn't move. She just breathed. Then her hands came alive. The magazine release click. Nothing dropped. She didn't hesitate. Left hand ripped the mag out with controlled force, tossed it aside. Right hand drew the bolt back, locking it open. Tilt. Inspect. 2 rounds jammed, 1 live, 1 spent. Classic double feed. Most shooters would panic here, fumble, curse, break position. Anna didn't. Still pressed to the rifle, cheek against the stock, she reached in through the ejection port with gloved fingers, calm, surgical. She plucked the live round free, then hooked the spent casing and flicked it out. Both fell into the sand. The crowd murmured. New magazine slap, bolt release click, round chambered, ready. She never looked up, never even blinked. Total time, 28 seconds. Someone whispered, "No way." No one cleared a double feed that fast. No one. But Anna wasn't done. The moment the bolt closed, she reacquired her target, 900 meters, and fired. Ping! Perfect hit. The air held its breath. Then she moved faster, sharper, as if the jam had lit a fire somewhere deep inside her. The cadence of shots became a drumbeat. Crack, ring, bolt, breathe, crack, ring. Each impact echoed through the desert like punctuation. Jensen's confidence melted with every clang of steel. She switched to kneeling, then to standing against a barricade. Each transition smooth, silent. Target 1,000 meters, ping. 1,100, ping. 1,150, ping. She found the moving silhouette Jensen had missed. Her scope tracked it across the shimmering heat. 1 half breath, trigger. Clang. Perfect center hit. Now there was only awe. Colonel Rustova's stopwatch hung forgotten in her hand. Anna continued, methodical, relentless. She fired until her rifle barrel glowed faintly under the sun, the air around it shimmering like water. Her fingers moved as if time obeyed her alone. Then came the final stretch, 1,200 to 1,500 meters. The wind had turned ugly, unpredictable gusts that shifted direction midstream. She paused, lifted her head slightly, feeling it against her cheek, watching the dance of sand in the air. She wasn't guessing, she was reading. A subtle adjustment, left hold, 1/4 mil high. 1,200 meters, ping. 1,250, ping. 1,300, ping. Each hit a lesson in patience and mathematics. The last target stood at the far edge of the range, a 24-inch steel circle nearly a mile away. She breathed once, twice, then everything inside her went still. Her world shrank to the trigger. Crack! The shot vanished into the desert. Seconds stretched, long and unbearable. Then faint, almost lost to the wind, came the sound. Tink! A perfect hit. 52 targets, 52 hits. She lowered the rifle. The silence was absolute. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. Anna stood, checked her chamber, engaged the safety and placed the rifle down gently. She turned to face the crowd. Colonel Rustova walked forward slowly, her boots crunching in the sand. She bent down, picked up the discarded magazine. Her thumb ran along the feed lip, finding the subtle bend, the tiny burr. Her eyes lifted, and they found Jensen. His face drained of color. She held up the sabotaged mag like a verdict, then dropped it into the dirt. The crowd didn't move. Master Sergeant, Rusttova said finally, voice quiet but steady, I have never seen a malfunction cleared like that, nor a perfect qualification. She studied Anna's eyes. That was not technique, that was memory. Where did you learn that? Anna looked at her. Chark Valley, Lager Province. The enemy was inside the wire. She said nothing else. She didn't need to. Somewhere behind them, the old master gunny who had been watching stepped closer, his weathered face unreadable. I saw that once before, he said, his voice low. One shooter holding a flank alone, thought she was gone when her rifle jammed. Then she fired again. Inhuman. He paused. We called her Kestrel. The name rippled through the crowd like a ghost returning. Whispers, recognition, awe. Kestrel, the ghost sniper. The myth whispered through units during the early days of the war. No one knew her face. No one had proof she existed. Until now. Rusttova exhaled, realization settling like gravity. The woman she had nearly dismissed as obsolete was the very legend they'd spent years trying to emulate. And she had just rewritten the record in front of them all. Why did no one speak when she left the line? Because no one knew how to. They'd come to watch her fail. They stayed to witness something closer to a myth made flesh. The moment the final clang faded into silence, every soldier at the range seemed to forget how to breathe. Colonel Rusttova was the first to move. She turned sharply, her voice a blade. Sergeant Jensen, Corporal's Diaz, bell my office now. She didn't raise her tone. She didn't have to. That quiet fury carried farther than a shout ever could. The three men stiffened, pale as chalk. Jensen's jaw twitched, the smirk that had once been his shield gone entirely. For a moment he looked almost boyish, like a man suddenly realizing the difference between arrogance and consequence. They walked toward the command tent in silence, boots crunching in the dust. Each step sounded like another nail being driven into something finished. Anna said nothing. She stood alone, rifle at her side, the sun turning the sweat on her face to salt. The others avoided her eyes, not out of anger now, but reverence, fear even. She wasn't one of them anymore. She was something older, harder, carved out of years they couldn't imagine. Rusttova followed the three men. The tent flap snapped shut behind her. No one could hear what was said inside, but they all heard the silence that followed. It lasted a long time. Then the three came out again. Jensen's face was blotchy, Diaz's hands trembled, and Bell looked like he might throw up. None of them looked at her. They walked straight to the barracks, escorted by the base adjutant. Their careers had ended before lunch. When Rusttova emerged, she didn't look at them. She looked only at Anna. The colonel's posture was different now. Less rigid, more careful, as if she were measuring her words against the weight of what she just learned. She approached slowly, Master Sergeant. She stopped herself, corrected the title in her mind, and tried again. Kestrel. The name hung between them, quiet but undeniable. Is that rifle adequate for your needs? Anna's eyes dropped to the M110A1 resting on the mat. It's a good rifle, Colonel. Rusttova nodded once. Take anything you want from the armory. Jensen's custom kit is yours. Operation Serpent's Eye begins in 48 hours. You will not join a team. You'll have your own overwatch position. You pick the site, you define the engagement criteria. You answer only to me. It was the highest trust a commander could give, total autonomy. Anna's answer was simple, understood. No salute, no ceremony, just two professionals acknowledging the line between them had shifted forever. Rusttova gave a short nod, turned, and walked back toward the command tent. The crowd parted for Anna as she moved away from the firing line. No one spoke. They simply stepped aside, like people giving way to a storm that had already passed. That night the desert cooled under a pale wash of starlight. The base was quieter than usual, muted, almost respectful. In the maintenance bay, under the harsh white hum of halogen lamps, Anna sat at a steel bench surrounded by the disassembled pieces of her rifle. To anyone else it would have looked like routine maintenance. To her it was ritual, order pulled from chaos. She worked with small, deliberate motions, toothbrush, cotton cloth, tiny drops of CLP. Each sound, scrape, wipe, click, was a heartbeat. She wasn't thinking about the qualification. She wasn't thinking about the men who had tried to humiliate her. She was thinking about how easily ego corrodes discipline, about how little people understand silence until it's forced upon them. The door creaked, footsteps echoed. Jensen. He looked smaller without the sun, without the swagger. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face hollow. He stopped 10 feet away, just far enough to keep a respectful distance. In his hand was something wrapped in thin plastic. "From the armory," he said hoarsely. "Master Gunny said to give this to you." He placed it on the crate beside her bench, a brand new magazine, and stepped back. He didn't apologize, he didn't try to explain. Words were useless now. He turned and walked away into the dark. Anna watched him go, her expression unreadable. When he vanished into the shadows, she unwrapped the magazine. The plastic crackled softly. She pressed a thumb against the spring. Firm, smooth, perfect. A small, quiet exhale escaped her lips. Not forgiveness, just acknowledgement. She said it with the rest of her gear and returned to her work. Piece by piece, she rebuilt the rifle, bolt carrier, firing pin, locking lugs. Each component slid into place with mechanical grace, ending in a muted click. The sound of order restored. When she finally closed the rifle and racked the charging handle, the motion was fluid, effortless. She tested the trigger once, thunk, empty chamber, safe, ready. She packed the rifle into its foam-lined case, wiped the last trace of oil from her fingers, and straightened. Outside, the desert night stretched endlessly, scattered with stars sharp enough to cut. The horizon glowed faintly where the mountains met the dark. Somewhere beyond that was Operation Serpent's Eye. Somewhere beyond that, new ghosts waited to be made. She stepped out into the open air. The wind had cooled, brushing past her face with the faint smell of dust and diesel. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Readiness wasn't a feeling, it was a state. The next morning began before dawn. Colonel Rusttova found her already awake, sitting near the perimeter wall, sipping what passed for coffee out here. The colonel hesitated, then sat down across from her. Neither spoke for a while. The only sounds were distant generators and the faint pop of gunfire from the training range. Rusttova finally broke the silence. "They said you disappeared after Lager Province. No record, no postings, just gone." Anna didn't look at her. Sometimes the work doesn't fit into paperwork. "Was it true?" the colonel asked quietly. "The numbers they whispered about?" Anna took another sip, her eyes still on the horizon. "Numbers don't mean much, ma'am. They don't tell you which ones you remember." Rusttova studied her face, the stillness, the composure that wasn't detachment but control. "You could have gone anywhere. Why come back out here?" Anna set the tin mug down. You can only stare at a screen for so long before the silence starts feeling dishonest. The colonel absorbed that in silence. Serpent's Eye is a difficult op. Satellite intercepts suggest enemy leadership is regrouping in the mountains. We need eyes, a rifle that doesn't miss. "You'll have it," Anna said simply. Rusttova nodded. She stood, brushed the dust off her uniform, then paused. "I misjudged you." Anna looked up at her for the first time. "You did what commanders have to do, measure risk. I would have done the same." That faint flicker of mutual respect passed between them, unspoken but unmistakable. When the colonel walked away, Anna watched the sun break over the mountains. The light turned the desert gold, harsh and beautiful. She thought about Chark Valley, about the day the wire had fallen, and the sound of her rifle had been the only thing left between her unit and annihilation. The faces blurred with time, but the sound never did. The crack of each shot, the silence between them, the pulse that never changed no matter how close the enemy came. She had learned something that day, not about killing but about stillness, about what it means to act without needing to explain. She had carried that lesson ever since. By noon, word of what had happened at the range had spread across every corner of Fob Aries. Soldiers who had mocked her now nodded silently when she passed. Conversation stopped when she entered a room, not out of fear but reverence. Legends had weight. She wished they didn't. That evening she sat alone on the berm beyond the Hesco barriers, rifle across her lap, watching the desert darken into violet and blue. She could hear laughter from the MWR tent, music faint on the wind. Normal life, the kind that keeps people human between missions. She'd forgotten what that felt like. A younger private walked past on perimeter duty, slowed, then saluted awkwardly. "Ma'am, Master Sergeant, good evening." Anna nodded once. "Evening, Private." He hesitated, then blurted, "That thing you did on the range, that was something else." She looked at him, eyes steady. "It was just a qualification." He shook his head. "Maybe to you." Then he moved on, boots crunching softly in the dust. When he was gone, Anna looked down at the rifle resting in her lap. The metal caught the last light of day, glowing faintly like an ember. In the reflection of the scope, she could see her own eyes, older, steadier, a little tired. She whispered to the rifle, voice barely audible over the wind, "We're not done yet." The stars emerged one by one, bright and cold. Operation Serpent's Eye was less than 2 days away. And somewhere out there, in the darkness that stretched beyond the wire, an enemy was waiting, unaware that the ghost called Kestrel had returned. Why did she volunteer to go alone? The question drifted through the briefing tent like cigarette smoke, silent, heavy, impossible to ignore. Everyone knew the operation's risks. They just couldn't understand why anyone would choose solitude when every ridge out there hid something waiting to kill you. Colonel Rusttova stood at the front, illuminated by the flicker of a projector that hummed against the canvas wall. The map of the Ilhadjir corridor glowed in shades of red and amber, a landscape of canyons and dust-colored scars. The mission was simple in wording, complicated in reality. Intercept an enemy command convoy, expected to move through a mountain choke point before dawn. The convoy carried a figure known only by code, the broker, the one coordinating weapons shipments that had bled the region for months. Overwatch positions had to be established along the high ridges before midnight. The approach was narrow, mined, and unpredictable. Drones would cover from altitude, but only for a window of 20 minutes before enemy jammers blacked the feed. "Primary overwatch will be held by Master Sergeant Sharma," Rusttova said, her tone clipped. A few heads turned. The murmurs were immediate, not out of disrespect but disbelief. Someone whispered, "She's going solo." Rustova's eyes flicked toward the sound, and the tent fell silent. "Kestrel will establish position Alpha on the North Ridge," the colonel continued. "Her engagement authority is independent. Once she confirms the broker, she has permission to neutralize without secondary confirmation. Everyone else operates on her timeline." Anna sat in the shadows, expression unreadable, fingers resting on a folded topographic map. She didn't look at the faces around her. She was already there in her head, the wind, the angle, the shot. After the briefing, she gathered her gear in silence. The armory smelled of oil and cold steel. She moved through the racks, assembling the tools of her craft. The M110A1 now tuned to perfection. A loophole optic, night vision scope, rangefinder, suppressor, 3 loaded mags, water, protein paste, morphine, and a photograph folded until the corners had begun to wear white. She slid it into her chest pocket without looking at it. Some things you didn't have to see to remember. Rusttova met her outside the armory. "You've got an extraction window of 45 minutes after engagement," she said. "After that, the valley belongs to them." Anna nodded once. "Do you want a spotter?" the colonel asked. "No," Anna said simply. Rusttova hesitated, then extended a gloved hand. "Good hunting." Anna took it, always. She left the base as dusk bled into the horizon. The osprey carried her partway before banking off, leaving her to continue the last kilometers on foot. The desert swallowed her without sound. Each step crunched softly on grit, the air cooling fast now that the sun had vanished. Her pack was heavy, but she moved like someone who'd long ago made peace with weight, both the kind on her shoulders and the kind you couldn't put down. The landscape changed as she climbed. Jagged rocks, narrow trails, the occasional glint of broken glass from forgotten firefights. By midnight she reached the ridge. She moved with no light, no sound. Just feel, every handhold deliberate. When she reached the crest, she paused, breathing slow, letting the air settle. From here she could see everything. The black ribbon of road snaking through the canyon, the skeletal remains of burned-out trucks, the faint shimmer of heat still rising from the sand. She set up her hide, a small hollow between two slabs of stone. From a distance it was nothing, just another shadow among thousands. She unfolded the bipod, adjusted the optic, checked the wind with a pinch of sand. The grains drifted east, lazy and uncertain. She noted it, recorded it, then let her rifle rest. She had hours to wait. Waiting, that was the true battle. Not the shot, not the distance. The stillness. The quiet that grew teeth and tried to bite its way into your mind. She sipped water, ate nothing. Hunger kept the senses sharp. Her mind wandered only once, to a voice she hadn't heard in years. Gunny Martinez, laughing beside her during a long-forgotten mission in the Valley of Ghosts. "Stillness doesn't mean dead, kestrel," he'd said. "It means coiled." She laughed then, she didn't now. The wind shifted around 200. Subtle, restless. She adjusted her dope card, recalculated drift. The rifle was part of her body now, every movement microscopic, every breath a metronome. At 2:43, the first headlights appeared. They were faint at first, just distant fireflies moving through the canyon's throat. Then more. 7 vehicles, maybe 8. Technicals armed with mounted guns, trucks with covered beds. The convoy crawled forward like a living thing, wary of its own shadow. Anna's breathing slowed. The crosshairs tracked the lead vehicle, then shifted to the third, a heavier truck, armored sides, different engine tone. That one. Through the scope, she could see the driver's hand tapping nervously on the wheel, the faint orange glow of a cigarette near the passenger seat. The fourth vehicle carried the broker. She didn't need confirmation. The pattern fit. 2 outriders, 1 lead, 1 tail, and the protected center. Always the same arrogance. She flicked off the safety. Then movement. To her right, 50 meters down the ridge, the glint of glass. A scope. Someone else was out there. She froze. The second sniper hadn't seen her yet, but he was watching the convoy. That meant the enemy expected trouble, maybe even baited it. She whispered under her breath, "Smart." She shifted her scope slowly, calculating angle, distance, 493 meters. Too far for a knife, too close for mercy. She waited until the other sniper adjusted his rifle, the faint silhouette just visible against the stars. Then she fired once, suppressed. The sound barely whispered, but the result was immediate. The figure jerked, slumped forward, and vanished into the dust. The convoy halted, headlights cut, voices rose, shouts, confusion, panic. Through her scope she saw the broker's door swing open. A man stepped out, shouting orders. The moment he turned, the wind died. Anna squeezed the trigger. The bullet took him high in the chest. He staggered, fell against the truck door, and went still. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then the desert erupted. Gunfire tore through the canyon. Tracers slashed upward, blind and furious. Anna dropped lower behind the rocks, cycling the bolt, exhaling calm into chaos. She hit the gunner on the second technical, then the one on the tail. Each shot measured, precise, unhurried. Her rifle spoke, and the canyon answered. But the enemy wasn't stupid. They started flanking, small groups breaking from cover, firing toward her ridge in blind arcs. Bullets ricocheted off stone, fragments biting at her cheek. She shifted position by meters, not steps, every move invisible to the naked eye. Her world shrank again, scope, breath, target, wind. She fired until the magazine ran dry, reloaded, and kept firing. When the return fire finally stopped, the canyon was filled with silence again, that strange, vibrating quiet that follows violence, when even the night seems to hold its breath. She scanned the valley once more. Bodies, smoke, the lead truck still idling, headlights cutting through dust like fog. The broker was down, the mission complete. But something felt wrong. The air was changing, a deep, rhythmic vibration beneath the silence. Engines. From the North Road, 3 more vehicles roared in, headlights off until the last second. Reinforcements, heavily armed. Anna's extraction window had just turned into a trap. She exhaled once, then she smiled faintly. Figures. She pulled back from the rifle, packed the essentials with mechanical precision, slung the weapon, and moved downslope into darkness. Every instinct screamed caution. She could feel the air pressure shifting with the engine's approach, the ground trembling slightly. Her heartbeat didn't change. She reached a narrow rock cut, barely a meter wide, and slipped into it just as the first spotlight swept the ridge. She crouched low, the light passing inches above her. Dust floated in the beam, tiny galaxies spinning silently. Voices called out below, angry, searching. She waited, counted breaths, 10, 20, 30. Then she moved again, slower than the wind, quieter than thought. The ridge was steep, treacherous. One wrong step and she'd fall into the open. She kept her weight on her palms, sliding, breathing through her nose. A burst of automatic fire lit the night below her, random, panicked. They didn't know where she was. That was enough. When she reached the lower slope, she paused beside a boulder, checked her compass, and adjusted course toward the extraction point. Her window was closing fast, 45 minutes. She started running. Not the panic sprint of survival, but the precise, measured run of a soldier who'd done this too many times to waste motion. Each step planned, each breath rationed. The desert blurred past her, ghost hills, dry riverbeds, black rock. Behind her, the searchlight still carved the ridge. Ahead, only darkness. And through it all, that steady rhythm: breathe, move, listen. At 3:47, she reached the plateau overlooking the valley. The extraction beacon blinked faintly on her wrist display. But the sound she heard wasn't an osprey, it was closer, smaller. A drone. She crouched, scanning the sky. There, a faint silhouette hovering, its red sensor light sweeping the ground like an unblinking eye. She raised her rifle, sighted, fired once. The drone spiraled, burst in a muted flash. Static filled her earpiece, then a familiar voice broke through. Rusttova. Kestrel, report. Brokers down, Anna said, breath steady. Secondary sniper neutralized, hostiles still active, extraction compromised. A pause, then, understood, backup route Bravo 7, 2 clicks east, you'll have 10 minutes. Copy. She started moving again, muscles burning now but steady, the weight of the rifle still balanced perfectly against her shoulder. 10 minutes. She'd waited longer for miracles. The eastern horizon was beginning to pale when she reached the final ridge. In the growing light, the desert looked almost peaceful, as if the violence of the night had been a fever dream. Anna crouched, scanning the open plain below. The osprey's shape was just visible, low and waiting, rotors silent. For a moment, she let herself breathe. Then she saw the glint, metal, far off, moving fast. Another truck, last of the reinforcements. She didn't hesitate. She dropped prone, set the bipod, adjusted the scope. Wind right to left, range 1,420 meters. She exhaled. The shot cracked. The truck veered, tires shredding. The men spilled out, confused, shouting. She fired again. The echoes rolled across the valley, like the voice of something ancient. When the last target fell, she stood, slung her rifle, and walked toward the waiting Osprey. The pilot gave a short, wordless nod. She climbed aboard without a glance back. As the aircraft lifted, dust spiraled beneath it, erasing her footprints one by one. She looked out the open ramp toward the horizon. The sun was rising again, another day, another silence earned. Inside her there was no triumph, only stillness. And somewhere beneath that stillness, the faint echo of a truth she never spoke aloud. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Why did victory always feel so quiet? The Osprey's interior rattled with the low vibration of its engines, but inside Anna's head there was only stillness. The noise blurred into a hum that almost felt like breathing, the aircraft inhaling, exhaling, carrying her back toward the world that pretended the night hadn't happened. She sat against the cold metal wall, helmet off, hair damp with sweat and grit. The smell of cordite clung to her gloves, her sleeves, even her skin. Across from her, a medic she didn't know checked a half-empty IV bag hanging from a hook. He wasn't watching her. He didn't have to. The way she sat, unmoving, told him she didn't need help. Below them, the desert unspooled, endless, empty, indifferent. It swallowed everything. Men, missions, legends. The rotor wash erased the tracks before the blood could even dry. When the Osprey touched down on the pad at Fob Aries, dawn had already broken. The sky was a washed-out gold, the light too clean for what had just happened. Anna rose, slung her rifle, and stepped out before the ramp fully lowered. The base was waking. Cooks lit burners in the mess tent. A line of soldiers shuffled toward the showers. It could have been any morning anywhere, and yet the air felt charged, as if the desert itself remembered. Colonel Rusttova waited at the edge of the pad. Her uniform was immaculate, her expression unreadable. She didn't salute, neither did Anna. Formalities had burned away somewhere in the night. "Mission report," the colonel said. Anna handed her a sealed drive, labeled and dated in neat handwriting. Primary target neutralized. Secondary sniper eliminated. Casualties, confirmed enemy 15 plus. Friendly none. Extraction achieved en route Bravo 7. No compromise to base security. Rusttova took the drive, turned it once in her hand. "And you?" Anna shrugged slightly. "Functional." The colonel's eyes lingered. "Functional," she repeated softly, as if tasting the word. "Get some rest." Anna nodded. "I'll clean my rifle first." "I thought you might," Rusttova said. The maintenance bay was empty except for the hum of fluorescent lights. The same bench, the same smell of oil and dust. She unpacked her gear, laid everything out with ritual precision. Rifle first. Optic next. Bolt, springs, pins. She moved mechanically, but her mind wasn't on the parts. Every time she wiped carbon from the chamber, the night replayed behind her eyes, the glint of another sniper's scope, the broker's brief look of recognition before the shot, the sound the body made when it hit metal. The echo of it still hung in her ears like a faint heartbeat. She had learned long ago that ghosts didn't appear as faces. They appeared as sounds that never stopped. When she finished cleaning the rifle, she didn't reassemble it right away. She just sat there, cloth in her hands, staring at the disassembled pieces. The weapon looked fragile like that, powerless. And yet it was. It was just waiting for intention. The door opened softly behind her. She didn't turn. Rustova's boots clicked against the concrete. "You debriefed with intelligence yet?" the colonel asked. "Not yet. I thought you'd want to see the footage first." "I did." Rustova paused beside her, studying the rifle parts on the table. "It was clean work, precise. You saved a lot of lives out there." Anna didn't answer. Rustova sighed quietly. "You don't celebrate victories, do you?" Anna shook her head. "I don't mistake survival for victory." The colonel leaned against the bench. You've been back in the field 3 days and already carried the hardest mission we've had in months. You've earned more than survival." Anna looked up at her. "With respect, ma'am, that's all any of us ever earn." Rusttova held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Fair enough." She turned to leave, stopped at the door. "There's talk upstairs about pulling you into a special rotation. Long-range interdiction, high-value targets. I told them I'd ask you first." Anna's expression didn't change. "You think I'd say no?" "I think you might. Some people stop when they realize they've become the story other soldiers tell." Anna's hand stilled. "Stories fade, ma'am, the work doesn't." Rusttova studied her one last time, then walked out. Hours passed. The base moved around her, but Anna stayed in the bay, putting the rifle back together piece by piece. When she finally closed the upper receiver, the sound echoed softly, a full circle. She slid the weapon into its case and stood. The clock on the wall said 1300, but the day felt older than that. She left the bay and walked toward the perimeter. The heat was brutal again, pressing against her chest, stealing breath. Near the HESCO barriers, a group of soldiers stood talking in low voices. When they saw her, they straightened instinctively, conversation dying mid-sentence. She nodded once. They nodded back, eyes respectful but distant. She kept walking. At the outer post, she found the same young private from the night before, sitting on an ammo crate, helmet off, sweat running down his temples. He jumped up when he saw her. "Ma'am, Master Sergeant, sorry, didn't see you coming." "Relax," she said. "You off duty soon?" "Yes, ma'am, another 20 minutes." She looked at the horizon, the endless ripple of sand and heat haze. "You ever wonder what it's all for, Private?" He blinked, unsure if it was a trick question. "I just try to do my job, ma'am." "Good answer," she said quietly. "Keep it simple. Complicated gets people killed." He nodded, visibly relieved when she walked away. That night, the base cafeteria buzzed with subdued energy. News of the operation had spread faster than official channels could contain it. Soldiers who didn't even know her name were talking about the shot, about the convoy, about how Kestrel had taken out an entire command column alone. She passed through the line, tray in hand, ignoring the whispers. When she sat, the noise dimmed, then gradually returned. The war stories had already begun to mutate. Distances lengthened. Enemies multiplied. In the retellings, she was already half myth again. Half invisible. Rusttova entered a few minutes later, took a seat across from her without invitation. "You eat like someone negotiating with the food." "I don't trust things that don't bleed," Anna said dryly. The colonel smirked. "You're becoming a problem, you know that." "How so?" "You make the rest of us look predictable." She took a sip of bitter coffee. "Command wants you on standby for another op, but before that they want a full psych evaluation. Standard procedure post-engagement." Anna gave a small nod. "I'll pass." "I'm sure you will," Rusttova said. "They'll ask about the jam on qualification, the sabotage. You want to file charges." "No." Rusttova frowned. "Why not? Jensen nearly cost you your career." Anna's voice softened. "He already lost his. That's punishment enough." The colonel studied her, then leaned back. "You really don't carry hate, do you?" Anna met her eyes. "Hate's heavy, slows you down." Later, when the base finally slept, she lay awake on her cot, staring at the canvas ceiling. Every sound was amplified, a radio crackle, the distant cough of an engine, someone laughing faintly outside. She tried to focus on those small, ordinary noises. They meant life continued. They meant she wasn't still out there. But sleep didn't come. It rarely did. Instead, her mind replayed the night in fragments. The flash of muzzle fire from the ridge, the still body of the sniper she dropped before he could even blink, the look in the broker's eyes when he realized too late. None of it brought satisfaction, only the dull ache of necessity. In the dark, she whispered the same words she always did after missions. One more done, one less owed. The next morning brought orders, stand down 48 hours, then report for debrief with Central Command. She used the time the only way she knew how on the range alone. No competition, no stopwatch, just repetition. Wind, breath, trigger. Each shot an echo against the walls, each impact a heartbeat in steel. She wasn't chasing perfection anymore. She was chasing silence, the kind that comes only after you've earned it. Colonel Rusttova watched from a distance for a while, then turned away. She understood now what most people never would. Anna Sharma wasn't trying to prove anything. She was trying to disappear into precision. When the last magazine emptied, Anna cleared the rifle, locked it open, and stared at the drifting smoke from the barrel. The smell was familiar, cordite and dust, the scent of meaning in a place where words failed. She whispered to herself, still functional. That evening the sun dropped hard behind the mountains. The desert turned violet again. She sat outside the barracks, polishing the scope lens, when the young private from the checkpoint approached with 2 tin mugs. "Brought you coffee, ma'am. Figured you might be out here." Anna accepted it, nodded, "Thanks." He sat on the ground beside her, careful to keep a respectful distance. "I heard command sending you out again." "Rumors travel fast." "Are they true?" She took a sip, "Probably." He hesitated. "Does it ever get easier doing what you do?" She looked at him for a long time, then said quietly, "No, you just stop waiting for it to." He nodded, not understanding but grateful for the honesty. When he left, Anna kept watching the horizon until the stars returned. The same stars that had watched her in Chark Valley, the same ones that had watched her tonight, unchanging, uncaring. They made her feel small in the best way, like a single, precise bullet fired into eternity. And in that smallness she found peace. Why did command always call it dawn, when the light was softest and the mind least armored? The message arrived through the encrypted net before the sun even touched the horizon. Transfer orders, temporary reassignment, tasking Unit 19, psychological evaluation pending, departure 1900. No explanation, no signature, just coordinates and time. Anna read it twice, then folded the printout once and slipped it into her sleeve pocket. The paper felt heavier than it should have. Orders always did. She dressed methodically, undershirt, blouse, sleeves rolled once, boots laced tight. The ritual steadied her pulse. When she tied her hair, her reflection in the small metal mirror caught her off guard. Same eyes, same scars at the corner of her jaw, but there was something quieter behind them now, an acceptance she didn't recognize as peace. Outside, the camp was half awake. Engines idled, radios murmured, the smell of burnt coffee mixed with dust. She crossed the yard toward the administrative hut where the evaluation team waited. The psychologist's tent was cooler than the others, lined with portable fans and the faint hum of air conditioning units stolen from somewhere more important. Major Elias Jaron sat behind a folding desk, sleeves rolled up, glasses low on his nose. He looked too gentle for this place. "Master Sergeant Sharma," he greeted, standing briefly. "Please sit." Anna lowered herself into the chair, spine straight, expression neutral. He studied his tablet. "You've been operational again for just under a week. No rest period. No psych intake since CENTCOM. You aware that's outside protocol?" "I was operationally required," she said. "That's one way to phrase it." He glanced up. "I read the after-action. 52 confirmed hits in a single qualification. Solo interdiction in Al-Hajr. You cleared a double feed under stress in 28 seconds. You make my job difficult." "Because you think I'm lying." "Because you make the numbers look fictional." He smiled faintly. "Mind if I record this?" "Go ahead." He tapped the screen. "Tell me, Master Sergeant, how do you feel?" "Functional." He sighed. "Everyone says that. Try another word." She considered. "Tired." "Physical or moral?" "Both." He leaned back, watching her carefully. When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours? Before deployment. Nightmares. She hesitated. Not nightmares, just replays. Difference. In nightmares, something changes. In replays, nothing ever does. He nodded slowly, typing. You ever question the work? Every time. And you still do it. Someone has to. He looked up again. You know what most operators say when I ask that? They say because it's my job. You didn't. Anna said nothing. Why do you keep going back? He pressed. She thought for a long moment, then said, because stopping would mean I start remembering. Jaren didn't write that down. He just nodded once quietly. That's honest. I'll clear you. That's simple. He smiled, tired. You don't need therapy, Master Sergeant. You need purpose. Command seems to provide that better than I can. She rose. Thank you, Major. Sharma, he called as she reached the flap. You ever decide you're done, make sure it's your decision, not the war. She met his gaze. It's always the same thing. What is? The war decides. Then she left. By noon, the rumor mill was turning again. Transfer to tasking Unit 19 meant black-level missions, things even satellite archives pretended not to see. People who went there either came back promoted or not at all. Colonel Rusttova found her packing in the barracks. So it's true, she said. They're pulling you. Orders came in this morning. The colonel folded her arms. They didn't ask my opinion. They rarely do. Rusttova exhaled through her nose. They're calling it a short rotation. But I know what that means. You're being sent to clean something up. Anna zipped her pack. It's never clean. I can file an objection, Rusttova offered. Say you're still under recovery review. Anna looked at her. Don't. The system needs people who don't hesitate. Rustova's jaw tightened. And what happens when the system forgets you're human? Anna slung the rifle case over her shoulder. Then I remind it by staying alive. The colonel wanted to say more but didn't. Instead, she extended her hand. For what it's worth, I'm glad I was wrong about you. Anna took it. Everyone is eventually. The Osprey lifted off that evening, the desert falling away beneath its rotors. This time she wasn't alone. 2 other operators sat across from her, one older, one young enough to still look surprised by everything. Neither spoke. Their gear bore no unit patches, only subdued name tapes. The younger one, Sergeant Adebio, finally broke the silence. You're Kestrel, right? The one from Lager. Anna's eyes stayed on the open ramp. Names fade. Yeah, but the story doesn't, he said with a nervous grin. Heard you. She cut him off gently. Stories are just noise, Sergeant. Focus on the mission. He nodded, chastened. The older operator smirked faintly, gave her a small nod of respect. I was with 3rd Group in Lager, he said. Heard the rumor. Glad to finally meet the ghost. She didn't answer. She just looked out at the darkening sky, the horizon bleeding from orange to black. They landed at a remote forward post carved into the base of a plateau, smaller than Ares, meaner. No flags, no insignia, just steel and sand. A captain met them at the pad, short, scar across his jaw, expression like stone. Welcome to tasking Unit 19, he said. No ranks here, just results. Your files already briefed me. He handed Anna a data tablet. Target package, codename Nomad. Ex-Special Forces went private, now running weapons through the Eastern Corridor. He's good, better than most. We lost 2 teams trying to intercept him last month. You'll be overwatch for the recovery. Anna scanned the file. A grainy photo of a man mid-40s, eyes hard but calm. Something in them looked familiar. When, she asked. 48 hours. Briefing at 06 tomorrow. Get settled. As he turned to leave, he added, they say you don't miss. Let's hope they're right. Her assigned quarters were little more than a shipping container with a cot and a single light. She set down her gear and sat on the edge of the bed, reading the dossier again. Nomad, real name redacted. Former sniper, decorated, discharged after a classified incident. She studied the blurred photograph until the pixels seemed to move. There was something about the posture, the way he held the rifle slung low, almost gentle. She felt a twinge of recognition and forced herself to look away. The coffee on the desk had gone cold. She opened her rifle case and began another inspection. Metal against cloth, cloth against memory. She wasn't afraid of the mission. She was afraid of what the silence after would sound like. The next morning, the team assembled in a narrow operations room. Maps covered the wall. The captain pointed to a cluster of coordinates along a mountain pass. Nomad moves here at dawn every 3 days. We've got a 20-minute window before he reaches the ridge and vanishes into the Badlands. Kestrel, you take Overwatch position Sierra 1. Engage only if fired upon or if he breaks containment. Anna nodded once. Adebio asked, why not just drone him? Jamming field, the captain replied. Nomad used to run our tech teams. He knows how to blind the sky. The older operator, Kalsin Rook, grunted. So we hunt one of our own. Exactly, the captain said. Questions? None. That night Anna lay awake again, listening to the wind rake the corrugated walls. She couldn't shake the image of the man in the photo. Something about his eyes, the same calm she saw in her own reflection after every mission, the same resignation. She reached for the folded photograph she always carried. The edges were soft now, the faces faded. 3 soldiers, younger, smiling beside a rusted Humvee. Gunny Martinez, a corporal named Vance, and the third him, Nomad. Back then he was just Staff Sergeant Reed. Her throat tightened. She hadn't seen that picture in years. He'd been her spotter once, her balance in the chaos, and now command had sent her to kill him. She stared at the photo until the light flickered out. Dawn came cold and sharp. The sky was a pale wash of gray when she stepped onto the loading pad. The rest of the team checked gear in silence. No one asked questions. In tasking Unit 19, you didn't. As the Osprey rose, Anna kept her eyes on the horizon. Somewhere out there, the man called Nomad was moving through the same desert, breathing the same thin air, maybe wondering who they'd send this time. She wondered if he'd guess. If he'd know the ghost was her. Why did the wind always sound like memory in the high places? Anna lay belly down on the ridge, cheek pressed against the cold stock of her rifle. The dawn light crawled up the canyon walls in thin gold lines, revealing a landscape carved from bone and silence. Below her, the narrow pass uncoiled toward the horizon, a single ribbon of dirt between walls of stone. Somewhere down there, Nomad would come. She adjusted the scope, checked her range card, then closed her eyes and listened. Wind, distant engines, the faint scrape of gravel under tires. Right on schedule. Bravo element in position, Rook's voice whispered through the comms. Alpha in Overwatch, Anna replied. Her voice barely stirred the air. Through the glass she saw them first, 2 trucks creeping through the pass. Dust plumed behind them like ghosts escaping the ground. The lead vehicle carried 4 men, the second only 1. The man in the passenger seat of the rear truck was still, head bare, eyes hidden behind desert goggles. She knew that posture. It was Reed. It was Nomad. 5 years and 1,000 rumors later, he looked almost the same. A little thinner, beard rougher, but that same coiled steadiness. He scanned the ridges often, calm, unhurried, as though he could smell the trap waiting to close around him. Anna steadied her breathing. The rifle moved with her pulse. Target in visual, Rook said. Permission to engage. Negative, the captain's voice came back. Hold till confirmation. The convoy slowed. Nomad stepped out, motioning to the driver. He moved with that old patience, studying tire tracks, the way wind cut through the valley. Anna could almost hear his voice from years ago. Wind's tricky here, Kestrel. Let it talk first. Now he was talking to the wind again. He walked to the back of the truck and retrieved a small satchel. Inside, the thermal optics caught a faint glow, electronic components, radio cores, smuggling hardware, enough to rebuild the kind of jammers that could blind entire platoons. Visual confirm, Anna whispered. That's our package. Copy, stand by for green, Command replied. The second he heard the order, Nomad froze. He looked up not toward her but through the scope, straight into the ridge where she lay hidden. Anna felt her heartbeat skip. He knew. Somehow he knew. A moment later, a burst of gunfire erupted from the canyon mouth. Two of his men dropped instantly. Rook's team had opened fire early. The element of surprise shattered like glass. Contact, contact, the comms exploded. Nomad dove for cover, returning fire with precise, disciplined bursts. His rounds cut stone near Anna's position, not at random but warning shots. He still doesn't want to kill, she thought. She shifted position, low-crawled along the ridge until she had a clear line. In her crosshairs, she caught him moving between boulders, rifle cradled close, face calm. The wind shifted left. He adjusted for it the same way she did. Same rhythm, same training. She hesitated. Alpha, take the shot, the captain barked. She exhaled halfway, finger poised on the trigger, then froze again. Because Reed had stopped moving. He turned just enough that she could see his mouth forming a word. Through the scope, she read it like she was lip-reading her own conscience. Don't. She blinked, breath catching. A round cracked past her ear. One of his men had flanked higher. Instinct took over, she pivoted, fired once. The shooter fell. The echo rolled down the canyon like thunder. When she looked back, Reed was gone. Alpha, report. Contact neutralized. Target moving north. Pursue, do not lose him. She packed fast, moving downslope through shale and shadow. The terrain tore at her knees, but she barely felt it. Dust filled her lungs. Memory filled everything else. Don't. Why hadn't she pulled the trigger? Why did his voice still sound like trust? The canyon twisted into a narrow defile. She slowed, scanning. Nothing but heat haze and the faint smell of gun oil. Then a whisper behind her. You're slower than you used to be. She spun, rifle raised. Reed stood 10 meters away, weapons slung, palms empty. The years hadn't dulled him, just refined him into something leaner, quieter. He smiled without warmth. Still breathing, I see. Reed, she said. Kestrel, he said it like a memory he'd kept hidden too long. They really sent you. I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice. That's why you were better than me. He nodded toward her rifle. You going to finish it? Depends what you're carrying. He shrugged the satchel off his shoulder, dropped it gently on the ground. Transmitters. No weapons, no explosives, just information. Information kills too. He smiled faintly. Yeah, but sometimes it saves. They stood there, two ghosts framed by stone and sunlight. For a moment, it felt like lager again, the same heat, the same smell of dust and cordite. Only the sides had changed. Why, Reed? She asked quietly. You were one of the good ones. Good doesn't last, he said. You know that. We built systems to watch everything, control everything. Then one day I realized we'd forgotten to watch ourselves. You ran. I left, he corrected. Left a machine that stopped asking why. Now you're feeding the people who kill us. He shook his head. I'm feeding the ones who still think for themselves. Command says otherwise. Command would. He took a small step closer, slow, careful. Tell me, Kestrel, when was the last time you believed them? Her hands tightened on the rifle. That's not my job. Then whose job is it? The question hung between them, heavier than the desert air. She felt her trigger finger twitch, then still. Every breath in her body screamed conflict. Behind him, the sound of engines echoed faintly, Rook's team closing in. Reed heard it too. His smile faded. "You've got less than a minute before they see me. You know what they'll do." "I know." He took another step forward, eyes steady on hers, then ended quick. "Don't ask me to." "I'm not asking, I'm giving you the clean option. They won't." Her throat tightened. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. You trained them." He looked down briefly, then back up. "Please." The engines grew louder. Dust clouds rolled down the valley. Anna raised her rifle, the motion automatic. Crosshairs found his chest. Wind calm, range 200, perfect shot. She could see his eyes clearly now, calm, steady, waiting. The same eyes that had once watched her back through 100 firefights. Her breath trembled. He gave a small nod. "You were always the better shot." The shot cracked once, soft and final. He fell without sound. For a second the world stopped. Even the wind hesitated. Then the roar of engines flooded back in. Rook's truck skidded to a halt nearby. He jumped out, rifle raised, scanning. Target down. Anna lowered her weapon. Confirmed. He approached, looked at the body, whistled softly. "Damn, Command'll sleep better tonight." She didn't answer. She just stared at Reed's still form, the faint dust settling on his shoulder. Rook radioed in, voice brisk. "Objective neutralized. No friendly casualties." The reply came back tinny, distant. "Copy Alpha. Package recovery in progress. Good work." Good work. Two words that never meant what they should. Rook turned to her. "You all right?" "I'm fine." He studied her a moment longer, then nodded and walked off to signal the extraction bird. Anna knelt beside Reed. She reached for the satchel, opened it. Inside were circuit boards, transmitters, and beneath them, a small drive wrapped in cloth. On it, a single line written in marker: "Truth is heavier than lead." She closed it again, her hands steady even as her chest felt hollow. When she stood, she didn't salute, didn't pray. She just looked down at him one last time and whispered, "Still functional." The flight back was silent. No one spoke, not even Rook. The wind tore through the open ramp, carrying away the smell of burned powder and something far older, the scent of things that couldn't be undone. Anna sat alone near the bulkhead, eyes on the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly below, bright and empty. Somewhere out there, the dust already covered the body. The story was already being rewritten. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the old photograph. 3 soldiers, a Humvee, sunlight. Reed's smile frozen forever in sepia grain. She folded it once more, smaller this time, until it disappeared in her palm. When she opened her hand again, only dust clung to her skin. Later, back at the outpost, the captain greeted her on the pad. "Clean shot," he said. "You did the hard thing." Anna looked past him, toward the setting sun. "Hard things aren't always right things." He frowned. "Command doesn't question results." "That's the problem," she said quietly. He didn't know what to say, so he walked away. When the noise of engines faded, she sat on the edge of a concrete step, rifle across her knees. The wind moved through the base, the same wind that had carried Reed's last breath. For the first time in a long time, she let herself feel the weight of what she'd done. It didn't break her. It just settled in, like dust in a wound that would never heal. Somewhere far away, thunder rolled, or maybe it was just memory pretending to be weather. She looked up at the sky, whispering words only she could hear. "They send us to make order out of chaos, but sometimes chaos is the only thing honest enough to look back." The stars came early that night, bright against the fading red. She cleaned her rifle in the dark, each click of metal a heartbeat. And in the rhythm of it, she found a fragile kind of peace, the kind that lives between guilt and duty. Why did silence always feel louder after the shooting stopped? 3 weeks passed. No missions, no briefings, just waiting, that cruel kind of stillness soldiers feared more than fire. The desert around Tasking Unit 19 baked itself into glass by noon and froze at night. Nothing moved except dust and thoughts. Anna kept her gear ready anyway. She rose before dawn, ran the perimeter until her lungs ached, cleaned her rifle twice a day. Routine was safer than rest. It gave ghosts no room to speak. But they spoke anyway. Sometimes Reed's voice came through the wind, half memory, half reprimand. Truth is heavier than lead. Sometimes she caught herself glancing at the ridge line, expecting to see him there, calm as ever, spotting her corrections. Habit was cruel that way. It mistook loss for discipline. One afternoon, the captain called her into the ops tent. The air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink. He didn't look up from the terminal when he said, "Command cleared you for return to Ares. You'll brief Colonel Rusttova and then decide if you want a permanent slot with us." Anna didn't answer. He finally met her eyes. "You did good work here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." "Work's not the word I'd use," she said. He studied her a second, then shrugged. "We all call it something different, keeps us sane." Outside, the wind hit hard, carrying sand against her cheeks. She walked back to her quarters slowly, each step a beat in an invisible countdown. She knew leaving didn't mean escape. It just meant carrying the desert somewhere new. At Ares, Colonel Rusttova was waiting in her office, sleeves rolled, a single folder on the desk. "You look worse," she said. "Feels accurate," Anna replied. The colonel gestured toward a chair. "Sit. I read the report. You didn't just eliminate Nomad, you verified his network, closed 3 supply lines, captured encrypted files commands been chasing for months." Anna looked at the floor. "You read what he wrote on the drive." Rusttova nodded. "Truth is heavier than lead. I've been thinking about that." "So have I." Rusttova leaned back. "You knew him." Anna's voice was barely a whisper. "He was my spotter." That didn't make it into the report. It wasn't operationally relevant. Rusttova exhaled through her nose. "You're a soldier, Anna, but you're also human, and humanity leaks through eventually." Anna's eyes met hers. "What happens when it does?" "Depends who's watching," Rusttova said softly. "You need time off, a lot of it." Anna stood. "Time doesn't fix anything, ma'am. It just lets things fade." "Maybe fatting is fixing." Anna gave a small, hollow smile. "Not for people like me." She left the office before Rusttova could answer. Outside, the camp was alive again, helicopters lifting dust clouds, laughter from the mess tent, someone playing a scratched guitar. The sound should have felt like home. Instead, it felt like distance measured in decibels. She found herself walking toward the range without thinking. Her hands itched for the weight of the rifle, the one constant that still obeyed rules. She set up a target at 600 yards, took her position, and breathed until the world narrowed to the circle of her scope. One shot. Then another. Then another. Each impact was perfect, but she didn't feel satisfaction. Only quiet. She realized that was what she'd been chasing all along, not redemption, not recognition, just the brief silence between the shot and the echo. When the last round fired, she sat back, rifle across her knees. The targets downrange were shredded, but it wasn't enough. She'd spent years trying to erase noise with precision, but now even perfection sounded hollow. She whispered to no one, still functional. The words didn't comfort her anymore. That night she wandered beyond the barriers, where the desert stretched clean and empty. The stars came early, sharp and countless. She could almost trace her entire career across them, each mission, each loss, each decision carved into a constellation only she could read. She thought of Reed again. Of his calm voice, the way he used to correct her grip, the quiet humor in his eyes when she'd overthink a shot. She thought of the photograph folded in her pocket, edges worn to silk. Pulling it out, she flattened it gently on her knee. The image was barely visible now, 3 silhouettes and the outline of a Humvee. She brushed the dust away with her thumb. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The wind didn't answer, but it carried the word somewhere, maybe to him, maybe nowhere. Either way, it was enough. Weeks turned into months. Command offered her medals she didn't accept and assignments she didn't want. Eventually, she took a posting stateside, training new recruits, teaching them the art of patience, the discipline of silence. They called her Ghost Instructor. No one knew her full record. They only knew she never missed and never raised her voice. She'd walk behind the firing line, correcting posture with a single touch, whispering things no manual covered. One afternoon, a young recruit, nervous, sweating, asked her, "Ma'am, what's the most important thing to remember before you shoot?" She thought for a moment, then said quietly, "That there's always a person on the other end." The boy nodded, unsure what she meant, but he'd remember it later. When the session ended and the range emptied, she stayed behind, cleaning rifles the way she used to clean her own soul, carefully, endlessly, as if neatness could undo memory. In the corner of the room, the base radio murmured with news of another operation overseas. Different names, same desert, same echoes. She switched it off. One evening, as she walked out toward the training field, Colonel Rusttova was waiting by the fence. She'd aged, more lines, less armor in her voice. "Command still talks about you," the colonel said. "They think you're wasting potential here." "I'm using it," Anna replied. Rusttova studied her. "You ever regretted the shot?" Anna looked past her toward the horizon melting into dusk. "Every day, but regret's proof you're still human." The colonel smiled faintly. "I used to think strength meant not feeling. You've made me question that." "Feeling's not weakness," Anna said. "It's the reason we aim so carefully." They stood there for a while, watching the last trainees pack up. The wind moved through the grass, softer here than in the desert, kinder almost. When Rusttova finally left, Anna stayed. The sun sank low, casting the range in amber. She set up one final target, not for practice, not for score, just for quiet. She took her position, breathing steady. Through the scope, the world was framed perfectly again, simple, controllable. But she didn't pull the trigger. She just watched the stillness through glass, realizing that maybe the hardest discipline wasn't shooting, it was choosing not to. After a long time, she lowered the rifle, laid it beside her, and let the air fill her lungs completely. For the first time in years, the breath didn't taste like dust or guilt. It just tasted like air. Later, under a soft moon, she sat on the porch of the empty training hall. The sound of insects hummed like a low lullaby. She reached into her pocket, unfolded the photograph one last time, and set it on the wooden railing. The wind caught it gently, lifted it, carried it out into the night. She watched it drift away until it disappeared, a small blur swallowed by distance. She didn't chase it. Instead, she whispered to the quiet, "Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts." Her words dissolved into the dark, joining the thousands of others she'd never said aloud. The stars above were bright again, infinite and unblinking, indifferent to all that passed beneath them. And still, in that vast indifference, she finally felt free. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and let the silence hold her, not as punishment this time, but as peace earned the only way she knew how, by surviving it.